Say you have a very small stone inlay or intarsia that you want to epoxy together, but the long working time until the epoxy sets is not ideal, especially if you have fidgety little pieces that you almost need to hold together with your fingers. I actually stumbled across this tip from a fellow lapidary, Richard Williams, who mentioned that doing this trick would remove the bubbles from your epoxy without having to get a vacuum chamber and whatnot. But I also found out inadvertently that this trick also cures your epoxy a lot faster. First thing, I would use an extraction hood here, wear a half mask respirator, or do this outside since you never know what fumes may come from this. Then I set out 2 even blobs of part A to part B of my epoxy 330 for a 1-to-1 ratio. The package instructions say to mix thoroughly for 1 minute, but I like to do 3 minutes just to be extra sure that it's all mixed in. So mixing introduces bubbles, so you can see all those bubbles here. Some can escape on their own, but others need a little help. Now get one of those stick lighters and hover the flame over it, maybe about 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch or so, until the bubbles come to the surface and pop. I'd say maybe hold it for about 15 to 30 seconds hovering around, since I found that some of the bubbles still popped after I moved the flame. You can play around with the time a bit, since I think, you may mix more or less epoxy each time. Do note that the epoxy will actually get kind of runny right after heating it before it starts to thicken. If you're going to add any colorant to the epoxy, like charcoal powder or any other pigment powder, I'd say mix that in before heating so you don't reintroduce bubbles after removing them. But if the bubbles aren't an issue for you, you could just mix afterwards as well. While this method isn't perfect for removing all of the bubbles like a vacuum chamber would, I found out really quickly that the workable drying time reduced immensely. Like, say, instead of 25 minutes or so of good working time with epoxy, just mixing it by itself, you have maybe about 8 minutes tops. And that also probably depends on how long you heat your epoxy. I'm going to say the longer you heat it, probably the faster it will work harden. So definitely do a little test run before going all in so you don't run out of working time on a bigger project. While this wouldn't be suitable for all inlay projects, like you wouldn't want to work on a really complex piece that has 10 or more stones, like this piece here. But this could be really beneficial for a small 2 or 3 piece intarsia or inlay like this, or even those who are taking my online inlay cuff class and want to get stones in and secured quickly so you can move on to cutting the next stone faster. I think this would be perfect for that. I hope you find this quick tip helpful for your lapidary mosaics, and happy inlaying, y'all!